HOA Karen showed up with a clipboard and tried to fine me for swimming in my own pool. Oh no, she picked the wrong backyard to mess with. HOA Karen fined me for using my own pool, so I locked it and blocked access. Part 1. The fine, the fence, and the war. They didn't see coming. Imagine stepping into your own backyard, the sun blazing, the water shimmering, your favorite playlist humming gently in the background. You dive in, the world melts away, until bam, bam, bam! That knock on the gate, sharp, aggressive, like it had a badge. I climbed out of the pool, still dripping, towel barely around my waist. And there she was, Karen. Clipboard in one hand, violation slip in the other. Sunglasses perched like she was auditioning for HOA SWAT. "You're being fined," she said, with the same tone someone might use to announce a plague. "For what? Swimming?" I laughed. "In my own pool?" She didn't flinch. "Noise levels have been reported. Also, the HOA discourages personal pools when community amenities are available." I blinked. Once, then twice. She was serious. That was the moment I knew. I wasn't dealing with a neighbor. I was dealing with a tyrant in yoga pants. Part 2. The clipboard, the canopy, and the Karen in the shadows. I live in one of those perfect suburban neighborhoods. You know the type. Every lawn, the same. Every house, beige, boring, rule-bound. Every mailbox screams, "I gave up my freedom for curb appeal." And lurking behind it all, the HOA. For years I kept my head down, trimmed my hedges, painted my shutters regulation gray. I thought I was safe, until I built the pool. Not just any pool. This was an oasis. Stone deck, retractable canopy, underwater lights that changed colors like a spa commercial. I had saved for years, sacrificed weekends, skipped vacations. This pool was my peace, and apparently, that offended someone. The week before the fine, I caught Karen creeping by with a measuring tape. Not even subtle about it. "You need something?" I asked. She smiled, tight, joyless, the kind of smile that makes your skin itch. "Just checking compliance," she chirped. "HOA guidelines." I told her it was city approved, permits and everything. She nodded, walked away. But I knew then, this wasn't over. Part 3. The $154 fine, and the real reason behind it 1 week later. It happened. Karen showed up again, clipboard clutched tighter than a toddler holding a crayon. She handed me a violation slip. I scanned it, then blinked. "Excessive recreational disturbance. $154 fine." "What? Can you define that?" I asked. She pointed to some vague line. "Use of outdoor pools that create social disruption may be subject to HOA review." I stared at her. "Social disruption? It's me, and a garden hose." She didn't budge. "Multiple neighbors filed complaints." Funny thing is, the only neighbors within earshot are the Petersons, an elderly couple who once thanked me for playing Sinatra in the afternoons. They even said it reminded them of their honeymoon. Something wasn't adding up. So that night, I logged into the HOA portal, downloaded the entire rule book, page by page. I searched, and guess what? No rule banned personal pools. Nothing enforceable. Nothing even remotely clear. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about rules. It was about control. Part 4, the fortress, the fingerprint scanner, and the petty blueprint. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't even respond to her nonsense fine. Instead, I made a plan. If Karen thought she could treat my pool like her business, then I'd make it nobody's business but mine. I opened my laptop, ordered materials, called a welder, and drew the boldest blueprint I've ever sketched in my life. By the time Monday rolled around, my backyard wasn't a pool anymore. It was a fortress. 8-foot steel fencing surrounded the perimeter, welded into concrete footings, like I was preparing for a suburban zombie apocalypse. At the front, a biometric lock. Yep, a fingerprint scanner. No one in, no one out, unless you were on the list. And Karen, she was most definitely not on the list. When she came marching back with another fine in hand, bun tighter than ever, smile stretched like fake taffy, she stopped dead in her tracks. No more sparkling water sounds, no more disruptive pool view. Just cold, defiant, matte black steel. I didn't just lock her out. I locked the whole HOA out of my life. Part 5. The gate, the glare, and the lemonade on the porch. She showed up again that afternoon. Same tight bun, same clipboard, same attitude like she owned every inch of the zip code. But this time, she didn't even make it to my front door. She stopped cold, staring at the new gate, the steel, the keypad, the sign. Private property. Unauthorized entry will be recorded. Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked like someone just canceled her Wi-Fi. She tried the gate. Nothing. Didn't even jiggle. So she pulled out her phone, started dialing like she was summoning HOA reinforcements. From my porch, lemonade in hand, I watched it all unfold like it was daytime drama. She shouted, "You can't block HOA access!" "This is obstruction." I smiled. "And this is my land. Unless you have a warrant or the ability to levitate, I suggest you return to your clubhouse." She fumed, raised her clipboard like it was Excalibur. "You're still being fined." I raised my glass. "Put it in the mail. I just bought a new shredder." Part 6. The snooping, the surveillance, and Volume 1 of Karen Caught. That evening, I reviewed the footage. See, while Karen was out there screaming about HOA rights, I was busy installing 6 motion-detecting cameras around my property, each one connected to live feed and cloud storage, each one ready. And thank the sprinkler gods I did, because right before sunset, Karen came back. But this time, she didn't come alone. She brought a fellow HOA board member, clipboard twin, and together they tiptoed around my property, whispering, pointing, flashlight flickering between fence slats. They thought they were being sneaky. But every word, every glare, every little clipboard scribble got recorded, with audio. I downloaded the file, labeled it like it deserved an award. Karen Surveillance, Volume 1. The next morning I got the HOA newsletter. It had a passive-aggressive gem. Reminder: all residents should maintain open and welcoming outdoor spaces that reflect community values. I laughed so hard I almost spilled my coffee. Community values? Or just Karen's fantasy monopoly on fun? Either way, I wasn't backing down. In fact, I was just getting started. Part 7. The fake keypad, the bushes, and the message they couldn't miss. Karen thought she'd won. But I had other plans. First, I painted the inside of my new steel fence a bold, tropical blue. Why? Because it clashed with everything she stood for, and it looked amazing. Then, I added 2 custom signs. Members only. Private cabana, no HOA access. Spite? Maybe. Art? Absolutely. But the best part came next. I planted 2 fast-growing privacy bushes along the fence closest to the street. Tall, thick, vibrant, designed to block any peeking Karens driving by for a whiff of control. And then, the cherry on top, a fake keypad mounted right outside the gate, with a shiny sticker that read, HOA access canceled, by order of property owner. People started slowing down when they walked by. Some laughed, some whispered. One guy actually clapped, but everyone got the message loud and clear. Stay out, except, of course, Karen never got the memo. 2 days later, she came back, and this time, she brought reinforcements. Part 8, the badge, the stare, and the door that shut it all down. 2 mornings later. Knock, knock. Not on the gate this time, but at my front door. I opened it, and there she was. Karen Becca Surfs. With backup. Next to her stood a man in khakis, polo tucked in a little too tight, a plastic HOA ID badge swinging from his lanyard like it meant something. "We're here for a pool inspection," he announced, smug enough to curdle milk. I looked at them both, slowly, then said, "Cool. And I'm here for some peace and quiet." His smile faltered. Karen's eye twitched. I added, "Unless you've got a court order or a swimsuit, I suggest you turn around." She gasped. "You can't deny the HOA access." I leaned on the doorframe, arms crossed. "This isn't an HOA pool. This is my pool, my land, my rules." Then, click. I shut the door, hard, not slammed, just loud enough to shatter egos. Later that day, a new letter arrived. They accused me of antagonizing community harmony. Harmony? There hadn't been harmony here since the first clipboard invasion. All I was doing was finally pushing back. Part 9, the silent disco and the sound of Karen's screams inside her head. That weekend, I threw a party. Not just any party, a silent disco. 5 friends, floating mocktails, no speaker, no bias, no blasting music. Just each of us in wireless headphones grooving to our own playlists. From the outside, total silence. From the inside, a vibe so strong even the moon was bobbing. Karen, of course, was watching. I saw her, binoculars up, lips pressed, face redder than expired rosé. She wanted to scream, to fine, to cite me for disturbing the peace. But there was nothing to report. No music, no guests parked illegally, no violations she could twist into power. The next morning, I got an email. "Concerns have been raised about alienating neighborhood participation." I choked on my cereal. This wasn't about participation. This was about control slipping through her acrylic manicured fingers. And just like that, the neighborhood began to stir. Some with curiosity, some with admiration, a few with rebellion in their eyes. Karen's grip was cracking. Part 10, the barbecue, the breakthrough, and the neighborhood awakens. I printed invitations on bright yellow paper, hand-delivered them with a smile. Neighborhood Appreciation BBQ this Saturday, BYO flip-flops and good vibes. And here's the twist. I invited everyone except Karen. That Saturday, my backyard transformed. Grill blazing, music low, tables full of homemade salads, soda cans clinking, and a ridiculous inflatable unicorn someone brought for laughs. Over 30 people showed up. Some I'd never spoken to, some had barely ever waved before. Now, we were sharing plates, stories, and something deeper, relief. One neighbor chuckled. "Karen once fined me for planting too many sunflowers." Another said, "She told me my hammock was visually aggressive." We weren't just neighbors anymore. We were survivors of Karen's reign. And that night, after the last burger was flipped, I pulled out a projector, draped a white sheet over the fence, and hit play. Every clip I had of Karen and her clipboard patrol, sneaking, whispering, snooping, it became movie night, complete with popcorn and petty justice. She called the non-emergency police line to report public defamation. The officer arrived, watched for 5 minutes, and said, "Ma'am, this is legal footage on private property. You may want to leave before this gets more embarrassing." She stormed off, soaked not in water this time, but in humiliation. Part 11, the petition, the power shift, and the beginning of the end. The morning after movie night. My inbox lit up, not with threats, with hope. 3 neighbors forwarded screenshots of anonymous surveys they'd sent to the HOA board, demanding a review of Karen's position. One came with a petition attached. "We're done being bullied. We want transparency. We want change." I didn't start this war to lead anyone, but somehow, I had become the rallying point. Karen felt it too. That afternoon, she sent out a mass email accusing me of dividing the community, inciting chaos, and my personal favorite, weaponizing social influence. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. Imagine thinking, lawn chairs and brisket are weapons of mass destruction. But then, she crossed a line. That weekend, someone cut the power cable to my pool's filtration system. A clean slice, right after sunset. My cameras didn't catch the act itself. But guess who was spotted near my fence with a pair of gardening shears earlier that evening? Karen's teenage son. Coincidence? Maybe. But I was done guessing. I replaced the cables, installed solar backups, motion-triggered floodlights, and alarms. And then, I sent one final warning to the HOA. Any further interference will result in a civil suit. I CC'd my lawyer. Karen was now standing on ice so thin she could hear it cracking beneath her clipboard. And I wasn't scared. I was ready to bring it all down. Part 12. The legal strike. And the first crack in Karen's crown I called James. My buddy, a real estate attorney, and the proud owner of a fire pit that once flooded his yard due to poor drainage design, a favor I'd helped fix. Now, it was payback time. I sent him everything. The fake fines, the HOA handbook, the surveillance footage, the neighbor statements. And yes, the night vision image of Karen Jr. lurking with garden tools. He reviewed it all, then said the magic words. "They've got nothing. If they push again, we hit them with harassment and misuse of authority." I smiled, cracked my knuckles, and drafted a cease and desist letter so spicy it should have come with a fire warning. I walked it down to the HOA office, conveniently located in Karen's garage. She opened the door with that trademark fake smile, until she read the headline, "Cease and Desist, pursuant to Civil Code 123.7. That smile evaporated. I handed it over, didn't say a word, and walked away. Let the paper do the talking. 2 days later, Karen struck again. But dirtier this time. My guests started getting ticketed. One friend got 3 citations in 1 week for parking on a public street, even though there were no signs, no restrictions, no rules broken. It was pure intimidation. Then came noise complaints from my silent disco night. You read that right? Silent. I responded with video proof of people dancing in headphones and wrote, "Unless the HOA now has tech that picks up Bluetooth signals, this complaint is void." No response, just silence. And that, for once, was fine with me, because the next move was going to be loud. Part 13, the second barbecue, and the day the neighborhood took a side. I hosted another gathering, but this time, it wasn't just about reclaiming my yard. It was about reclaiming the neighborhood. Flyers went out, hand-delivered with personal notes. You're invited, good food, good neighbors. One rule, no clipboards allowed. And when the day came, they arrived. Families, couples, retirees, even neighbors I hadn't seen in years. They brought food, they brought folding chairs, they brought stories, and boy did the stories start flowing. She fined me for leaving a stroller on my porch. She said my wind chimes were too whimsical. One time, She told me my lawn gnome violated the HOA spirit. Laughter echoed between bites of grilled corn and pulled pork. We weren't just bonding. We were healing. Then, as twilight fell, I rolled out the sheet again. And this time, we didn't just watch footage of Karen creeping around. We watched a montage. Clips from every camera, every clipboard ambush, every ridiculous violation. It was our own neighborhood documentary, titled Life Under Karen. And right as the credits rolled, Karen called the non-emergency police, again, claimed I was defaming her character in public. When the officer arrived, he stepped into the backyard, popcorn in hand, looked at the projection and said, "Ma'am, this is legal, recorded on private property. You might want to reevaluate your strategy." She didn't scream this time. She didn't argue. She just turned around. And for the first time since this war began, she walked away. Part 14. The Receipts, the Revolt, and the Fall of Queen Clipboard, the very next morning. Karen did what all flailing tyrants do. She sent a desperate email blast. "Our HOA is under attack," it warned. "Community values are being eroded. Outside forces are sowing division." She even accused me of weaponizing barbecues. I couldn't make this up if I tried. But the best part? Nobody bought it. Neighbors forwarded the email to each other and to me like it was comedy gold. But then, something incredible happened. A quiet, retired neighbor named Dale reached out. Soft-spoken guy. Always wore the same fishing hat. Barely said 10 words at past HOA meetings. Turns out, Dale used to be the HOA treasurer. Karen had forced him out years ago. But Dale? He kept everything. He handed me a folder full of documents, receipts, invoices, bank statements. It didn't just show mismanagement, it showed something worse. Karen had been funneling HOA maintenance funds to renovate the community pool, the same pool she constantly pushed on us, which was being leased under the table to her cousin for private swim lessons. We're talking misappropriation, fraud, and a potential criminal charge. I added Dale's documents to my already massive evidence file and sent it straight to the City Housing Authority. No Reddit post, no group chat, no grand announcement. Just cold, hard truth. Delivered with the precision of a legal hammer. And 3 days later, I got the email that changed everything. Your complaint has been reviewed. An investigation into your HOA is now officially open. Part 15. The gray Prius, the empty meeting, and the neighborhood rebellion. It all started with a knock. Not on my door. On everyone's door. A gray Prius pulled up that Friday morning. Quiet, clean, government plates. Out stepped a man in a collared shirt with a clipboard. Not Karen's kind. This one had a city seal on it. He was from the compliance division. He went house to house, asking questions, listening, taking notes. And Karen, she panicked. Within hours, she sent out a frantic notice. Emergency HOA meeting, attendance mandatory. But no one came. The clubhouse was empty, because half the neighborhood was now in my backyard, sipping lemonade and watching the Prius make rounds like it was a parade float. The other half? They were busy putting up signs on their own fences. Private property. No HOA access. This yard is a Karen-free zone. Smile, you're on camera. Again. Even the Petersons, the sweet elderly couple next door, started playing jazz from their porch speakers again, full volume. Karen had banned that years ago. Now. They were dancing in lawn chairs like it was 1965. A dad down the street installed a trampoline. Someone hung a giant disco ball from their oak tree. Another neighbor painted their mailbox pink. We weren't just pushing back. We were taking back our lives. Karen tried one final desperate move. She sent another HOA-wide alert. This community is under threat. Beware of internal sabotage. Traditional values are collapsing. She even accused me of creating a suburban cult. And honestly, if our cult has grilled corn, inflatable flamingos, and freedom, sign me up. Part 16. The hearing, the humiliation, and the refund that deserved a frame. Karen didn't show up for the first part of the hearing, but her name was everywhere. The Municipal Review Board had gathered. Papers were read aloud. Timestamps, violations, witness reports, even a printed photo of her cousin's private swim lessons flyer, held at the community pool, paid for with HOA funds. The charges? Illegal fines, harassment, misuse of authority, misappropriation of HOA finances. The city ordered a full refund of every cent she had unjustly taken. That included my $300 fine. They mailed me a check. I didn't cash it. I framed it, hung it on my pool gate, right above the new sign. Karen Free Zone established. This backyard. But wait, it gets better. Karen was officially removed from her position. The HOA had to restructure. They held new elections. For the first time ever, people who had avoided the board like a plague volunteered. Not out of power hunger, out of purpose. One of them, Sheila. The sweet neighbor who once got fined for hanging laundry, she brought over a fruit basket with a note. Thanks for fighting the war. We were all too tired to start. I didn't run for the board. Didn't want to. I just wanted my pool, my peace, and maybe a unicorn floaty or two, but somehow I became a spark. And the neighborhood? It finally caught fire. The good kind. Part 17. The victory splash, and the sound of a neighborhood finally breathing. I'd been waiting for this day, since the very first knock on my gate, since the first bogus fine, since the first time Karen tried to weaponize a clipboard. So I made it official, printed colorful invitations that read, "Come celebrate freedom, victory splash at my pool, flip-flops, floats, and anything Karen would hate." They went out to every doorstep, except hers. Saturday came, and with it, the entire block. Kids rolled up with inflatable dinosaurs. Someone brought a float, shaped like a slice of pepperoni pizza. One guy arrived in a unicorn raft that had built-in speakers. Music played, burgers sizzled, laughter echoed louder than any HOA rulebook. People shared stories between bites of grilled corn and cannonballs. The mom who once got fined for a stroller. The man warned over whimsical wind chimes. The woman who got a notice for unauthorized garden gnomes. But now, we were laughing. Together. Karen had ruled through silence of fear, isolation, and we were undoing it all. With music, jokes, grilled pineapple, and joy that couldn't be fined. Then, right as the party hit its peak, she appeared. Not through the front gate? No. She tried sneaking through the side, probably assumed the layout was the same. What she didn't know? I had installed motion-triggered sprinklers, synced to my camera system. Hiss! A full blast of cold water drenched her. She shrieked. Everyone turned. Cameras came out. She froze, soaked, stunned, seething. I walked over slowly, holding out a towel. "Looks like you triggered the trespasser rinse setting," I said. "You want a towel? Or maybe another citation? For unlawful entry?" She looked around at the crowd. But this time, no one looked away. No one apologized. No one backed her up. They just watched. And she turned, dripping with more than just water. She was drenched in karma. Part 18. The mug, the movement, and the peace that finally stayed later that night. As I was drying off from the victory splash, there was a knock on the gate. But this time, it wasn't Karen. It was a city official from the housing committee. He smiled, shook my hand, and said, "I just had to stop by. I've heard about your pool and the storm it survived." He stayed for a soda, chatted with neighbors, watched a kid cannonball off a pool noodle. Before he left, he said something I won't forget. "You didn't just win a case. You changed the way this whole street breathes." And he was right. Over the next few weeks, the ripple kept growing. More neighbors installed their own gates. Signs started popping up. "Private yard, no HOA entry. We know our rights. This property respects freedom and fun." Even better, people from other HOAs started messaging me, asking how we did it, what cameras we used, how to write a cease and desist. It was spreading, but I stayed grounded. I didn't run for HOA president, didn't start a podcast, didn't start a revolution. I just kept swimming, sometimes with a soda, sometimes with a floaty, always with peace. One morning, I opened my door to find a coffee mug left on the step. It read, "HOA free since 2025. I use it every single day, because this wasn't just about a pool. It was about boundaries, dignity, not letting bullies win just because they have a clipboard and a title. Karen's reign, done. The neighborhood, healing, and the silence that followed wasn't fearful, it was peaceful. But one thought still lingered. As I floated under the stars that night, if it took all this to stop just one HOA tyrant, how many more Karens are out there? Unchecked? Let me know in the comments. Because maybe, just maybe, you've got a pool worth defending too.